So from recent stories that Development Finance today has run, OakNorth have been really active during the COVID-19 crisis. So how have you been able to continue supporting developers during this period of time? And how much have you lent in terms of development finance since March the 23rd?
Sure. So look, for us, we were in a very strong position before the COVID pandemic really affected us here in the UK. Very well capitalised and very liquid, and obviously, off the back of a number of years of straight profits and growth, were very focused on continuing with that path in this current year, and that's obviously held us in good stead. We've continued to lend money. We've lent about 180. Well, we've had about 180 million of facilities approved since the start of lockdown. And for us, I suppose really it's kind of been business as usual in that we've continued to back experienced real estate developers that have done what they've done over a number of cycles already. This is obviously a slightly different situation. I think it's probably fair to say we were anticipating the end of the cycle at some point soon anyway. And this has just taken us there in a slightly different circumstance to what we would have expected, and probably a bit quicker. But again, we back experience, we back good management teams, and that's what we've continued to do.
Perfect. And have the processes and criteria for your development finance changed since lockdown to enable the bank to continue lending to developers?
No, I don't think they've changed. I wouldn't say they've changed. I mean, again, we focus on backing experience, and that's definitely what we've continued to do. I think the situation with our housing crisis in the UK means that there is so much pent up demand and lack of supply that if that isn't addressed, the situation's going to get worse. So we've continued to fund up and down the country, really trying to address that undersupply as much as we can. So no, I don't think they've changed.
How has the development finance team, adapted to the new working environment, and have you seen any positives as a result of that?
I mean, look, it's an interesting one, and it's like the world's longest disaster recovery plan unfolding, and you're part of it. So obviously nobody ever built systems to deal with a situation like this. But one of the great things about OakNorth is that being a new bank, we don't have legacy systems and we don't have clunky systems that don't interact with each other. We were actually the first bank in the UK to be fully built and hosted on the cloud. And that's meant that in terms of disruption, there's been no disruption. In fact, the only issue I've had personally was with my own Wi-Fi rather than any systems for the bank, and that was just once. So we've had great continuity. We've had no issues at all. I would say that some of our teams within the bank have definitely been more productive as a result of lockdown. And offices are great, but can be a bit of a distraction. And in terms of our credit committees, as you probably know, one of the things we do is we bring our borrowers into our credit committee. So we've continued doing that on Zoom. I mean, there's obviously certain things you can't do in the same way. So site visits were out for a while, but they've now resumed on a safe basis. We did take the decision with a number of loan facilities that we would continue through our process without a formal valuation, which borrowers were really appreciative of, and it meant that we could get money out the door and help support borrowers without waiting for that kind of final piece in the jigsaw. But no, look, it's been on the whole, it's been great. Everything's working perfectly. As I say, there's been increased productivity in some of the teams, and now the question is, how and when do we get back to normal, and what is the new normal?
Sure. You mentioned a little bit about valuations and how you kind of approached them. Are you using ABMs or or desktops at all?
Yeah, as I say, we have done. We've completed a number of deals based on desktop views. You know, one of the things that we've always liked to do is get a real expert view and our own view on what an asset looks and feels like. So, you know, wherever possible, we always go to the site ourselves, if not one, sometimes two of us. We've got in-house surveyors as well that we usually go. And then we obviously instruct third-party firms. But as I say, we have completed some deals where we've just gone on a desktop view.
Okay. And what does the development finance pipeline look like going forward in terms of your appetite? Has that changed if you're looking at different asset types or locations?
I mean, I think we are definitely trying to analyse risk deeper and harder. You know, that's not to say we're taking longer, and you know, we're not looking for issues if there aren't issues there. We've developed our own specific set of sensitivities that we apply, and those are, you know, a number of sensitivities that we've come up with on a proprietary basis based on data we have of prior cycles and prior recessionary periods. So we apply those sensitivities to all new deals we're doing. We look at you know, potential future income streams from rent, etc. But no, look, we've continued to hold the pipeline. We've continued to complete on deals. The pipeline's pretty strong. I think, if I'm honest, some of the liquidity in the market has definitely disappeared. You know, I think it's an obvious factor given the size that the clearing banks typically focus on existing portfolios during this time, so they're doing less new business. And you know, I think some of the alternative lenders that had perhaps wholesale funding lines and fund structures may well have problems with liquidity from here on in. So, you know, for us being a regulated bank and having a strong loyal deposit base is going to stand us in excellent stead. And you know, we're not reliant on investors to fund on deals that they'd committed to some time ago. So we're in a pretty good place.
In addition to that, you've also been accredited by the British Business Bank. How much have you lent through the government-backed schemes, and how much has gone to developers?
So we've done to date through credit about 60-ish million. I would say off the top of my head, probably 2/3 of that has gone to developers. And, you know, I think the government's response to this crisis has been pretty phenomenal. You know, you look at the schemes that they've come out with, they weren't designed to be real estate geared historically. And they've provided a number of amendments to enable real estate to fit their schemes. I think the C bills and the CL bills schemes they've come up with have pumped billions into the economy and really helped property entrepreneurs carry on with developments that may have otherwise ceased. So I think the government have done a really good job there. You know, I guess my fear is everybody's living in a little bit of a bubble at the moment because of this kind of artificial situation we're in with so much government support. And as that starts to fade out, as we come out of lockdown, you know, I think we'll see a few situations unfolding.
Right. That kind of leads me on to my next question about what you would say are the key challenges for the property development finance industry now and also post-crisis.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, as I say, we've continued lending within these government schemes and outside of the government schemes. You know, we've seen lots of deals that have fallen over with other lenders that have got quite far down the market, got quite far down the line, and then they've decided to pull back from the market. So, you know, there are lenders, if they don't have access to the government schemes, they're not lending. As I say, we are entering for sure a period of kind of constrained liquidity in the market. So I'm sure post-crisis that's going to continue. But, you know, I think, as I said, there is a growing housing shortage. You know, the knock-on effect of all of this is that planning permissions have taken longer than they would have previously. You know, there's been construction delays, there's been stoppages, there's been supply chain delays. So, you know, I think all of these factors mean there will continue to be demand, there will continue to be a need. And, you know, for us, if we've got strong liquidity, I can see us doing really well in the midterm.
The announcement yesterday, actually, just based on some of the things you just mentioned, from the government saying that they are going to extend planning permissions for those which are going to run out during this period of time. Will that help developers secure funding which they potentially couldn't have got before?
Yeah, I think it will for a number of situations. You know, I guess in reality, unless there's some tactical game going on with alternative planning, most developers have enacted their planning by the 3-year expiry in the main. So, you know, it may help. I don't see it as I see it more of a removal of a bureaucratic blocker than a pent up supply issue.
Right. Okay. Fine. And how can brokers help struggling property developers during this time?
Look, I think brokers can help by understanding the government schemes, understanding what's on offer. You know, they should certainly have their finger on the pulse in terms of knowing what their clients are wanting to do. And of course, it's important for brokers in this market to keep up to date with who's doing what. You know, that part of our market definitely has a role to play here.
And for those that may not know already, how did you get into the industry?
I've been in the industry for 20 years now. My mother, bless her, will never forget finding the advert in the newspaper for the first job I eventually got. And she reminds me on a regular basis about that. But I've worked at probably too many banks, but a number of the large institutional banks, and was lucky enough to be part of the team that secured the OakNorth banking license. So it's been it's been a real fun ride.
I'm sure. And if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
Gosh, I think really in another life I would probably like to be a surgeon, but I was never clever enough at school to pursue those science A levels. But yeah, I could see myself as a bit of a medic.
Nice, great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.